Everybody, happy Friday. It's tech time with Tammy. So today's tech is going to be a little bit different. Today's is going to be a rebuttal video over another video. So I had made a video talking about high solids clears and why to use high solids clears, the difference in using what would be considered an ultra high solids clear or using your traditional 35 to 45 or so percent solids clears. And when I talked about that video, I talked about how the masses are using about a 40% solids clear for most of what they're doing. In that video, that Dave Monning from Coast Airbrush did, he talked about how someone asked him a question, was basically like, I mean, why should I be using this clear? You know, why not use this? So you ever feel like sometimes whenever someone does tech, sometimes they do tech in a way to justify not using something that they just don't have access to, or they're not going to have access to. So sometimes, and this is not just like this one particular person, this is just something that I kind of see where people don't have something, so they instantly want to knock it just because that's the best, easiest way to sell against it. And to literally come up with lies as justification as to why not to use that product. And to me, that is a total disservice for a person who does do a service to the industry, absolutely blatantly lying about a chemical process does the industry no service. It's a form of just total lie. And that's part of why I want to do the tech videos and why I have been doing the tech videos, and something that I have done for a very long time, and I'm kind of bringing it back, is because there is so much misinformation in this industry that people don't know what the truth is. And telling an industry that a high solids clear will, when the cutting and buffing process, will completely eradicate their UV protection by completely sanding it off in the cutting and buffing process where it all rises to the top, is not only a flat and total lie, it is a complete disservice to the industry, because then it puts in the minds of people that they're using a product that their UV is completely rising to the surface and being skimmed off in the cutting and buffing process. And that's not true. It is patently unfalse. So I want to use Brian Lynch, who is a person who's been in the industry well over 40 years, who is a person who has the credentials to go against this. I know I have the credentials to go against this. I'm not somebody who comes from just running a store in one state, selling multiple other people's brands. I come from a manufacturing background since infancy, coming from, yes, 3 different careers in my 43 years, one of which lasted me well over 20 years in my family business. The other is one that I own. So it's not, well, this company came out with something and, selling new. The truth is that it is hard to sell against the way that I market. It is so hard to sell against the way that it's promoted. It's hard to sell against somebody that does have a following, no matter what they talk about. And the truth is that sometimes to compete, maybe you have to have a little bit of drama. Maybe that's what's being done here, to find the means to sell against it. Let me make it very simple for you. It's just not going to work. It's just, saying something that's inaccurate to sell what you already have, and then try to talk about better guns and not using anything other than an Iwata, and then talking about, using a UV Cure Clear that's 100% solids, which is a completely different formulation, which I actually sell something that is a clear coat that's, a polyaspartic type clear, similar in method and very, very quick, and cures in a completely different level. And, so selling another product or talking about another product that you have in comparison to something that's night and day, and then telling people that the clear that is being used is going to fail because it's going to split and all this other stuff and crack when it gets from one state to another state because of heat it's patently a lie. So I'm going to use Brian Lynch, who has the credentials, that has the ability to compete against this. And this is what he had to say on the matter. Yes, paint jobs that are over applied will likely split, die back, often delam, but that's where the message gets sideways, meaning the video that Dave did. The UV screening package in the formulation doesn't float to the surface. In a properly mixed and stirred clear coat, there is no chance of any ingredient floating to the top during application. The most extreme example of floating is when a color is so heavily applied that one pigment will separate, usually seen as a dark yellow or a red streak in the bottom of a run. The weakness described in the video is when a sand and buff is performed on an incompletely cured clear coat, meaning it could be any solids content. It could have been a 30, it could have been a 40, it could have been a 66, by the way, not a 65, but a 66% solids clear. It could have been any of those. The analogy should be used of that of like baking a cake. One can think a cake completely baked just by the appearance of the crusty top while the inner layer is gooey. Why you would use a toothpick or why you might use a fork. A thinner cake layer, longer bake times, or just choosing cookies would be a few possible cures. With automotive clear coat, we live on very specific film build recommendations. That is the dry film thickness, the DFT. Every single paint company has a different required one. Every single paint company, when they were producing the product and having it go through UV testing, this is me talking, I'm pausing from Brian, every single product is tested at its solids, at its formulation, at its UV, at all of these things. It is tested to see where it's going to last, what the longevity is, where the breakdown is, because in the end, clear only breaks down from the UV elements. That is it. It breaks from lack of curing and the elements. That's it. Back to Brian. With automotive clear coat, we live with very specific film build recommendations. Application beyond the recommended DFT, too cold a curing environment, too short a time are things that prevent proper curing. This, by the way, refers to the curing of the entire film, top to bottom, meaning the top, the middle, and the bottom cure the whole way through when you have proper temperature and you have proper application, flash times, all of those things. That's me saying that. That's not Brian saying that. That being said, most people judge the cure by the readiness to buff. They cut, they buff, and they spread icing on the top of the film. They don't notice that for whatever reason, the inside is still gooey, dried, but just not cured. When they cut off the top crusty layer, they expose an inside that has not developed the integrity intended for the product, meaning over application, lack of flash time. All of those things could play into why something might not work, no matter the solids content, is what he's saying. This product will fail prematurely. Not because the UV left the chat, meaning not because you scuffed it off the top in your cutting and buffing process of 2 coats and you no longer have UV protection, but rather the inside of the layer was trapped and gave up before curing occurred. Low solids, high solids, or anything between performs best when applications are done within the recommended DFT. Again, every tech sheet has a different recommended film thickness that they look for. Does every single person that's using a product, by the way, pausing again from Brian, every single person using a product on the market right now, by the way, does not follow proper tech sheet protocol. None of them. Every single person who's saying they put 7 and 8 coats in one session is not following proper protocol on a tech sheet, period. Any person who is applying more than 4 coats is not following proper protocol on a tech sheet, period. That is not what they recommend. It is not what they talk about. It is not in the tech sheet. So every time it's done, you are breaking the manufacturer's protocol. Every time you're using USCO1 and you're waiting completely different time frames and you're going too quickly and you're stacking too many coats, the tech sheet does not discuss it. It's not there. You are breaking manufacturer protocols. Custom painting. Back to Brian. Custom painting does require a special handling and material selection and more that is more important than OEM refinishing. When applied and cured properly, a 2K clear coat is an inherent surface, can be stacked indefinitely. Meaning you could just keep stacking. Me and Brian had a conversation about this, where he continually painted something. And he just kept stacking and stacking and stacking because he was just trying to break it. But the truth is, if you continually follow proper protocol, proper flash time, proper temperature, which is one of the most popular things I talk about. I did another video on temperature. It is one of the most crucial things. If you can get your product to cure thoroughly and have it true, thorough curing, your product will not fail. Realize that the tech sheets that are done, the entire process of a manufacturer coming up with the protocols and the testing for UV and everything that's going to make or break a clear, this is all done. This is all tested. This film build is tested to see whether it's going to last. It is put in a machine where it doesn't matter if you're in California, you go to Havasu. It doesn't matter if you go from one state to another. It is put in the most extreme requirements to see where the break will occur. That is how they make products. That is how these products are made. That's how these products that I have are made. It doesn't matter where I come from. It doesn't matter how many companies that I was at. None of those things matter. trying to sell against a product you just won't have and you don't have, and coming up with ways of telling this is just not true. Hope you guys have a good night. Take care. Thanks. Bye.